Welcome, Michelle. So you're the superintendent of the Springfield CTC, which is the Career Technology Center in Springfield, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, awesome. So I had the opportunity to see you speak a couple of times at one of my client meetings, and I was just really impressed with your professionalism, your passion and dedication to what you do. Really kind of strong, really stands out to me. And then also just the whole energy that you bring. So I'm so glad that you were open and willing to kind of do this video with us today and kind of help share your story and maybe empower some other women with kind of your journey.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so this is my first superintendency. I actually got here sort of organically, I would say. Education was not my pathway professionally. I thought I was going to go into our family business or math or something, even a secretary. I started in FSA back in the day was my student organization. It was Future Secretaries of America, actively involved in that route. But then I got to college and I had an advisor there who said, you know what, I don't think you're quite decided like you think you are. So let me put you in this educational exploration. And of course, I went to Heidelberg, which is a small liberal arts school, kind of like Wittenberg, I'd say. Um, and I was in love with education from there. My major at the time became special education and elementary education, and psychology was just sort of a natural flow with the two of those. So I triple majored, and every
Wow.
semester, I know, right? um, every semester, I was able to be in a classroom of some sort, whether it was through the lens of special education, elementary education, or psychology. And so education became my passion. Started out in Dayton Public Schools, and I took a halt and went to Australia, believe it or not.
What?
I know. That's where I ended up solidifying. I think every educator gets to a place where they're like, am I really doing everything I can and right by these students that I'm serving? And that was sort of my turning point. I went to Queensland to study at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. I found an educational leadership program there where I obtained my master's, and it certainly solidified my direction. So when I returned, taught in Whitehall City Schools, mostly special ed at that point. I had taught some elementary and special ed in Dayton, and then I landed back in Whitehall, Ohio, and I taught special education at the high school level. Eventually, that went to English and then college English. And I found career tech when I was doing additional licensure coursework. And it's kind of like, to me, the Candyland of education. That particular, when I got to Mideast Career Technology Centers, it was for a visit. They asked me to come and do sort of an observation feedback visit as part of a technical assistance team. And I fell in love with it. A position there came open, and the same thing happened here. I was moving up and getting my licensure for superintendent at the time, and I came here to Springfield Clark CTC while the assistant superintendent at Mideast Career and Technology Centers, and I was visiting to see what I still think is a best practice in what we do. And that is embedding our English course into some of our career tech programming. I loved it when I came here, brought my team back here, and all of a sudden this position came open. So I found my way here in this position, and I love Springfield. I love what it does for kids here at the Career Tech Center. I love that we have a juxtaposition of the urban city school student,
Hmm.
the rural kids.
Yes,
So I love the size, and I just love career technology.
that's amazing. So actually, the Australia thing I didn't know anything about. Was
Yeah.
the education piece what took you there, or was it something different that brought you to Australia and kind of made that path for you?
No, it was the education piece. I had done some exploring, and I could have done it here in the United States, but it was just like stop and focus on it. Felt like the where I was in my life, it felt like the right thing to do at that time. So stop and focus on furthering my education, and I could get it done quicker. And I had a 7-year-old, at the time. She was 7, and she went with me. It was the two of us, and she went to school there, and I went to school there, and we came back a year later.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Was it kind of interesting seeing maybe some differences, or how did it help you grow going to Australia?
Yeah, I'll tell you, when you think about rigor, I had not experienced anything quite that rigorous in my field yet. And my educational experiences really pushed me, and it pushed me to understand. I was primarily learning from professors from South Africa
Oh,
that
wow.
had, yeah, they had come through what they called the brain drain there. They had actually worked with Nelson Mandela on his campaigning in South Africa, and they were kind of just really strong women that I was learning from. And so their expectations were super high and taught me to push myself more than I had done in the past. And I was also learning alongside of individuals from nearly every continent. And that was also really cool for me to experience. I had not been outside of Ohio that much at that point. So
Yeah. I love when people take the opportunity to go overseas because there's so much that you can learn from other people from other cultures and other backgrounds and things like that. And it's just a neat experience and something that I hope my children do one day. So that's very cool.
yeah, it's amazing, and you learn a lot about yourself. And it
Yes.
certainly solidified for me that I was in the right profession.
Yeah. Well, and then that journey, it seems like you just kind of followed whatever opportunities or paths kind of opened up in a way, and you had the courage, I guess, to take the leap. Take the leap of going around the world basically with a small child
Mm.
and doing something totally new and different, and then coming back and seeing how you can apply that education and that experience back here into the lives of the kids and things that you're involved in here. So that's very cool.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Okay. So you told us a little bit about your background. I know, like, we very briefly kind of talked a little bit about kind of your roots and how that influenced your journey. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it is full circle in life. I think as we, especially as women, right? We we learn from those around us in order to like surge forward in who we are. And I would say both my dad and my mom were integral in that. And when we talk about roots and rooted, when I my mom was my heart and soul growing up. My parents divorced, and that's not necessarily always a bad thing. But my mom, I learned what resilience looks like from her, and I will always credit her for that, being my biggest cheerleader. And she unfortunately passed away shortly after I got this job here. But I also feel like that was an element that was meant to be. She got to see me get my first superintendent's job and sort of that break through that glass ceiling, if you will. I know it seems like it's cliche, but unfortunately in some industries, it's still very much a thing. And so she was incredibly proud. And my dad, when I think of my journey into career tech, I really think of him. When I got back from Australia, he decided there's 5 of us. There's 5. I have 4 siblings, and he took myself and my daughter down to Kentucky, which are where his roots are from, and he showed us as many of the locations as he could to say, "Hey, education is where it's at." And he was so proud that I had gone into education, and he had attended 12 different schools in 12 different years.
Wow.
Bounced around from family member to family member, school to school. And towards the middle of his high school, he realized that the only way he was going to go anywhere was if he could graduate from a prestigious high school. So he did a little extra tobacco farming, sold it, and got himself to Jacksonville, Florida, so that he could graduate from Jacksonville, Florida. And so that made his 13th school. He ended up inheriting from his stepfather an electrical trades business, and so he was an electrician at that point, and he chose that instead of going to college. And so that's where the family business kind of came into play, was the trades. And I felt like it was sort of serendipitous, if you will, that I landed in career tech where these trades are where it's at. And so I feel rooted in a way that maybe I had not anticipated. My dad ran that business until he passed in November this past year. And so it's electrical, petroleum, and construction. And so now I'm part owner, very small part, but part owner of a trades-based business that is run out of a schoolhouse. He bought a 1910 schoolhouse. And so when I think of being rooted, even things that feel like, or the story that we tell seem like they should be devastating or heartbreaking, and they are in some ways, but they make us who we are. And so that's in part what my love for this career tech education is.
I love that. And first, of course, and foremost, my heart goes out to you for both of your mom and your dad.
Thank you.
And it's very cool to see what an integral part they played in who you are and where you are, and like how it came full circle, right? You know, a trades business in a schoolhouse, and now you're like the superintendent of a trade school, which is something that I think our community really needs. When I was growing up and I was going to school, it was you go to college, you go to college, you go to college, you go to college. And I think that that mindset has kind of put us in this position where so many people didn't go into those trades that are absolutely necessary and maybe would bring them more joy than doing something different and sticking with what they love, and being able to grow a substantial business out of that.
I agree completely. And quite honestly, it was the same for me as well. You go to college, and in my mind, seeing the struggles of my mom, I thought that was pretty much the only way for me, is I had to do that next step. And I was the first in my family to go to college. And then my daughter was the second. So it was kind of, it's fun to continue to share the growth journey in our family with the next generation too.
Yeah. And not only did you go to college, but you crushed it, right? You went, you triple major, you went to Australia, you got your master's, you've done so many incredible things. And now you're here educating future generations too on what their path might lead to.
Thank you.
That's very cool. What inspired you to pursue a career in education? I know we kind of talked a little bit about it, but what was it specifically while you were in college that you were like, yes, did you ever have like a moment or a thing that you can say, yes, this is how I went this way?
So my my advocate in college, she was my what they called our advisor.
Mhm.
I didn't actually have classes with her to start with. We had a weekly meeting with them where we just, the transition to college life is what that was all about, and we had to attend it. And when she pushed me in that direction, it was almost like she saw in me the fit with education before I did. And when I got into a classroom, I'll never forget, I was in a local high school in Tiffin, Ohio, and it was OGT time, and there were kids that had not passed the OGT, and so they put us all in the cafeteria to help them with math. And because originally I thought I was going to be a math major, and it just felt like home. It felt like home to help young people, to see them get excited when they got something that they'd otherwise struggled with. So that was definitely a defining moment for me. And then each time I got to go back into the classroom, it didn't matter what grade it was to me, from kindergarten all the way up to grade 12, there was something exciting about helping them find their passion, or them find passion in learning something they thought they couldn't otherwise learn.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about leadership, right? As a superintendent, you have some leadership roles that come along with that. Can you kind of share a pivotal moment or experience from your personal journey that's kind of helped you shape the type of leader that you are, or the type of leader that you want to be?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, like I can always go over to my dad, and I'll probably come back to that. But in terms of my my career field specifically, when I was at Mideast Career and Technology Centers, I was actually an assistant director, and over there that title is like assistant principal in a regular K-12 school. And I loved what I was doing. I was getting to know that particular setting. I was getting to know the trades from a different view. I was and just really enjoying what I was doing. My superintendent then, his name was Bill Bussey, came in and asked me if I would be part of what was called a new and aspiring superintendents academy. And it was very specific to career tech superintendents. They knew that in time, most of the sitting superintendents in schools like this, what we call joint vocational school districts, there's 49 of us, and they knew that within 5 years, at least half of them were going to turn over. So they're trying to sort of grow their own, if you will. And he had urged me to go into this program, and I'm like, no, I love what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I want to be this assistant director, or maybe a director. I don't know. But I went, and it was just, they always describe it in my world, in this world, as you drank the Kool-Aid. Once you have drank the Kool-Aid in career technical education, and you know you want to be a leader, you're in it for life, and I feel it. So that was definitely that particular program. It was a year long, 2012, I believe it was 2012, 2013 school year. We went around the state looking at career tech centers. We met with other career tech superintendents and directors and leaders in the field. We went to Washington, D.C. We learned about advocacy for career tech and what that form of leadership looks like through that program. And I never thought advocacy was my thing, but when you get such a niche like career tech education, it's easy, because it's easy to advocate for these trades and to show legislators and others why it's so important. So that definitely solidified my leadership. And then Mr. Bussey allowed me to become the assistant superintendent under him while I was at Mideast, which eventually led me here. And in terms of my dad on the personal side, it was something that we watched, but I would say that, believe it or not, at his funeral, when I went around and talked with people, men from everywhere came out. He was a well-known man in his industry in Central Ohio, and the things that they described in him as a leader were, he's the most fair and honest leader I've ever known or worked for. And so I think that has always just been ingrained in who we are, as no matter what you do, you go all in and you do it to the best of your ability. And if you're going to move on, you leave it with integrity as well. So those two men, I'd say, are, and of course, my mom, I got her, but she showed us, the 4 of the 5 of us are girls. And so she raised the girls. My dad raised my brother. And she showed us that no matter what you've got, you got to be resilient. So.
Yeah. It sounds like, gosh, all of your experience, you really bring a wealth of experience and knowledge and I like just energy back here and to Springfield and with the students and stuff. And I just really appreciate all that you're doing for these future leaders, right? They're going to be leaders in their trade or leaders in the community, or even educators themselves, you know? So I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me. So as a woman, I feel like we, especially career women, have this level of extra on top of us, right? To be a parent, to be a mom, to take care of a home, to take care of your career, your work. How do you balance all of that? I think that's one of the things that a lot of us struggle with. That as strong, capable female, it's probably one of the number one things that I hear from women is they just don't know how to balance. They feel like they have all of these plates spinning all of the time, and they're not sure which ones are plastic and which ones are glass, and which ones, if they fall, they break. How do you balance all of these things?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate enough to always find my network. And that's critical in balance, whether it's balancing emotionally or balancing the things that you have to get done or um, the mental side of it. And, for me, I was a single mom, and I wear that hat proudly. And I've always known that part of my journey was a model for her, for my daughter. And so part of my journey, I didn't always know that it was to seek balance or finding balance, but has been like I said, it was either I stop for a year and go somewhere else and focus on education for just a year, or I stay very busy and unbalanced by staying in the classroom, working through college at night, figuring out where my daughter's going to go during some of those times. And so for me, my mental health and wellness sort of has to be the first priority, and balance is part of that. And so in that case, my balance was achieved by saying, we're going to pick up and go over there. We're going to live minimally, but that's okay, because when we come back, I can go further in my career, which will help. And then career tech has also been, in education, a great balancing tool for me, believe it or not. When you're an administrator and I didn't know I was going to land in career tech, but I'm thankful for this part of it as well. If I had gone into a building level administration in K-12, I would have likely had all the gamut of extracurricular, right? You've got games at night, you've got evening activities and latchkey and choir and band and all the things, and you're expected to be there. That's very difficult to balance. Career tech has minimal. So my ability to watch my daughter's tennis matches, it actually got greater when I stepped out of the classroom and went into leadership. So I say it is true that we wear a lot more, personally, but I think we're built for it. I think because we wear a lot more, we're built to be able to figure out how to balance, how to do it in a way that we model it for our own children. And the reality of women in leadership is we cannot be mediocre. Mediocrity is not a thing for us, to keep going in our fields, especially, I don't know all fields, but I know in education for sure. So I never took a step forward until I knew that I was going to be able to also have some balance within that, with that step on my journey.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think a lot of times we look at something and we're like, oh, that's the step forward. That's the direction that I need to go, without thinking about the consequences, maybe on how that's going to affect our time or our relationships, our mental health, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really, really important nugget. Can you describe for me maybe a challenging situation you faced in your career and how you navigate through that, or if there's like a something that you call on during those situations that kind of help you get through those?
Situation in my career. I mean, I will say the most prevalent one right now is our levy. Failing twice. I've never been I watched Whitehall City Schools when they went through their building project levy, and my only part in that was to volunteer and put labels on postcards. So I've never been a part of a building project, and this journey has been both challenging and rewarding, and disheartening, to go to the polls twice. So I learned a lot the first round. I learned a lot the second time around.
Mm-hmm.
I learned the importance of boots on the ground, having the right people around you, networking, no matter where your challenge is. I think networking is such a huge, and having that trust bank of people around you that helps lift you up, but also tells you the honest truth when you're not doing such a good good job. So I think that's been, no matter what challenging endeavor, this one included, having the right folks around you that will do both, and balance you and help you balance yourself through the process, to continue forward through the challenges. Our journey's not over, obviously.
Yeah. And it comes back to the tribe mentality, right? Having the right tribe around you, and maybe not necessarily ones that just keep you in your comfort zone, but also challenge you and elevate you and celebrate you and appreciate you all the same ways that, you do for them.
100%. And, in a field where you are the leader, having the right leadership team is just as important, right? And not always hiring the yes person, hiring the folks that will challenge you, even if you're their supervisor.
Yes.
And it's,
yeah, absolutely. What do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment professionally?
greatest professional accomplishment. I would say making it here, becoming a superintendent. I believe I'm the first female superintendent at this particular location, Springfield Clark Career Technology Centers. And it seems like, oh, it shouldn't even be a thing. It's 2024, but it is. So I would say this is my greatest accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact alone that you're the first female in itself just goes to show that it's still a thing, right?
Right. Well, when you look around our county, there's 2 of us now. When you see Paula Crew at Tecumseh, and we have really great working relationships with all the superintendents. So that doesn't matter so much. But when you look around a room, anywhere you go, and you find yourself doing that, checking the pulse, like how many women are in this room? How many people of color are in this room? And we're still few and far between. We're still the minority across the state, probably across the nation. And so it's a big accomplishment. It's a big accomplishment to keep going in the field, because you get into, especially education, we're a service-oriented profession, and you can speak a certain way from the male side. A male can speak a certain way, and the woman can speak the same way. And in some cases, not all, some cases, that's the way he should be, and we're too harsh and all of a sudden hardened.
Yes.
And you see that everywhere. And so just really navigating that from this seat sort of proves why this is one of the biggest accomplishments. Not only did I get here, but 7 years later, I'm still here, and we're still looking forward. We still have a vision for growth and change right here in this district. So it's been a great challenge.
Yes. Yeah. And I can relate to that. I've been in the military for 22 years now. Yeah, coming up on my 22nd year. And a lot of that exists in the military as well. I mean, there have definitely been times where I've been in leadership meetings and I was the only female in the entire office, or, all the things that you're talking about. And it is accomplishment. That's one of the one things that Strong Capable Female is all about, is just really showing off all the accomplishments and the amazing things that, we're doing.
Yeah.
So speaking of the future, what does that look like for you? Is this this is where you're going to retire from? This is where you're going to ride and die from? Like, what do you see happening, kind of like the future for yourself?
Yeah, the long-term plan, I don't know that I have the answer to that, because if you kind of look at my resume, I'm a mover in the growth sense. So, Dayton to Australia to move up, to gain more experience in Whitehall, to then move up, and then here to move up in my career. And that's always been my goal. I do want to get a doctorate still. I want to get a PhD in educational leadership. I love to open the door for myself and for future generations to look more at not just equity. Equity is, become a buzzword in a way. But sometimes we need the buzzwords to come in and be common language, but we need to follow up with sort of legislative change, so that actionable steps are more conceivable, I think. And in education, I would love to work my way into that field if I'm ever not here in a superintendent seat. But the shorter version of my goal is, I want to be a part of growing this district. I want to keep moving forward the career technical skilled trade space here in Springfield-Clark County, for the entire county. I'd love to be building a new building soon, and be part of that conversation with this community. So that's really where I'm still seeing myself, and looking beyond that, the doctorate for sure. But I've had people joke with me and say that they could see me being in one of the big seven, or the like a Columbus or a Cincinnati. But I can tell you that that's not really my jam, because I love career tech so much that I love where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So I feel like you hit on something that I, kind of is important to me, and I talk about, and I always heard this, not always. So I heard this phrase one time, and it really has kind of stuck with me, that you're either growing or dying, and then you get to make the choice of what that is. And I feel like you've lived your life that way, and I'm always growing. Like every step is a step forward to whatever that next stepping stone is in my path, whether that's professionally or personally or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important also as part of that balancing, that what you're doing is important enough that you may need to take some other stuff off of your plate, to create a balance and to grow at the same time. Like you cannot keep taking things on without removing things.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a business consultant who tells me that all the time. Because I am very bad at, like, I want to do all of the things, right? So I have to like learn to rein myself in and say, okay, what is the purpose of this in my life? And in the long term, how is it going to affect me?
Yeah.
And make choices in the other different, and kind of prioritize what those are. Because I can't be and do all of the things, right? We
Yep.
can do all of the things. We just can't do them all at the same time.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. When is it? Well, somebody told me one time, it was one of the professors who used to teach at Ohio State University, and he also led that superintendent cohort I spoke of earlier. He said, what you accomplish in the first half of your life is going to be very different from what you tackle in the second half. And he said, if you really look at most people who are continuing to grow and continuing to find that balance, they will prioritize. And then the second half of their life, they will start to do things that they wish they had time for before. And I'm like, yeah, I can see and feel that in some ways. So
yeah, that's awesome. All right. How do you feel like you foster an inclusive and positive environment within your bubble, or even within the CTC, or within your community?
yeah, I think, I mean, really, inclusivity is what we're all about. And within our setting here at the Career Tech Center, we want we want young people to know that we could be a step on their path, and it doesn't matter who they are, what gender they are, what race they are, what background they've come from, that we could be the right step for the right reasons for the right young people. And that is why largely one of our 4 pillars here at the Career Tech Center is equity. It's a matter of how are we making sure we are culturally responsible, what we say and what we do and what we teach, so that everybody does feel like there is a place for them, or that they are allowed to push back in a safe space.
Yeah.
whether it's staff or students. And so a welcoming environment is huge for us here. Strong communication, strong partnerships, internally, externally, just always working on that cultural aspect of what we do here. And for me, it's funny, when I came here, everybody here kind of knew what I needed to know, right? And I don't say that in a bad way. I say that in a new superintendent, and it's a county-wide reach. It's not just a district, right? It's not just within this small geographic range. It's the entire geography of Clark County. And so you're getting pulled in a million directions. And so for me, it's been, how do I figure out where all I should go, can go, need to go, and prioritize and help be seen, and also learn about the entire community so that I know how to lead this district, so everybody feels like I feel part of our community and they can feel part of this community. And that's been, it's the other thing I love about Clark County. It's a great size for that. To be able to take your first leap into superintendency. It's not super giant, but it's not super small. And like I said earlier, I love the juxtaposition between the cultures that just can naturally have access to what we do here. Yeah.
So what's in the future for CTC? I know you talked about one of the challenges was the levy. What is that going to look like now moving forward?
Yeah, we are in the middle of gathering our options. We had entered a resolution with the OFCC for the state co-funded model, and we had 13 months. In January, though, new legislation passed, and that allowed districts doing the same thing moving forward to have 16 months. And so we need to know right now, because our resolution allowed us 13 months, and that would have been from August 2023. So our last chance would be September of this year. Are they going to allow us an extension? And I did already reach out to them. We're already looking at what that could look like, but it's not in effect yet. So we can't even consider being allowed the extension until that new legislation goes in effect. And that could be April, I'd say, at the earliest, based on that typical 90-day window of signing new legislation into place. So that could be an option. We don't know much about, we know the cost of a special election is up there. So I don't know if that's an option, but our real next steps are to meet as a board with as much information as we can have to understand what our options are, and then move forward. Because if we don't solidify our portion, then we lose the co-funded portion from the state, which is 39 million. And that's quite a chunk of change to also have to raise on top of our portion. So yeah, that's where we're at right now, is just really information gathering and figuring out what we can do so we can make a good informed decision. And the board will inevitably weigh in on that in the next couple of months. So
yeah. And then it goes all the way back to what you're saying about having the right tribe of people, right? Having the right people bring the right information in order to figure out what that next step is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you stay motivated? Like, what keeps you inspired to wanting to grow? Is that something that's naturally in you, or something you just kind of developed? Like, how do you stay motivated in whatever it is that you're currently doing? You've been there for 7 years. Is that right? That's what you said. How do you stay motivated in what you're doing? Does it come naturally to you, or are there things that you do to stay there?
You know, it is sort of who I am, that sort of like surge forward, resilient kind of person, very much visionary and creative by nature. And my journey along the way has taught me the need to kind of like step back sometimes and delegate, step back sometimes and grow other people, step back sometimes and really think about the whole to part learner like myself versus the part to whole. And that's adults and students as well. So just that challenge from this seat keeps me motivated. There's a new one of those that come at you every single day. And in terms of like balancing outside of here, I feel like that's equally important to create downtime, the mental health and wellness time, in order to come back motivated the next day or in the next couple of days. So I have dogs that help me with that. I am a
Get it?
nanny. So I have a granddaughter who is just like, she's like magic. Those, my family, we're all pretty close, and we keep each other motivated, and we live a little distant from each other. I'm over here in Springfield. They're all in Central Ohio, which is fine as well. But just again, it's the tribe, the right
Yeah.
people, regardless of whether it's for downtime or for growing here professionally. But always a different new challenge here, and I kind of love that.
Yeah. You kind of blew my mind a little bit when you said that you're creative, like you're just naturally like creative and stuff like that. But like in the beginning of your story, you were focused in on math, and that blows my mind.
Right? And
Yes.
yeah, what's funny, probably the funniest part about that is, and you know how you play those games sometimes when you're like coming back to school and like, let's play that game where what you wouldn't know about me, or if I could open any kind of business right now and money's not an issue, what would it be? So a couple of things that I grew up doing and loved: horseback riding, loved. And if I could open any kind of business, it would be more of equine therapy. I find so much therapeutic value in that lifestyle. You know, you walk into a barn, you smell your lifestyle and the experience. So that and art, art was definitely my thing, and it was everything in me to not go that route. My art teacher and I went special trips to the Columbus College of Art and Design, CCAD, and he said to me, if you know, my dad grew up poor. My mom didn't grow up poor, but through a divorce, we didn't have a lot. So I lived in poor moments, and I didn't want that. And I was afraid of the starving artist mentality that so many people around me had. So I thought, okay, the secretary, the math, I was a well-rounded student, but my real passion is the creative side of life. So
Yeah. When I think that sometimes having that real passion and not putting so much pressure on it for it to sustain your lifestyle or whatever else that might be is a good decision too, right? Being
that's a
able to
great
keep
point.
that,
Yeah,
yeah. And that gives you the opportunity to use that passion still as an escape or to balance or to re-energize you to go back into the next day of whatever it is that you're doing.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. So if you had any advice for anybody, um, you know, in women in leadership or moving forward into futures and things like that, what would you leave us with today?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah. I think um it's find your passion. And it's not women specific per se, but with women, find your passion and find your network of others who you can share that passion with, to keep you humble, to keep you moving forward, to keep you growing. And it's your people, it's your tribe, like you described it, and it's your stuff, like your what it is that gives you that joy and that passion and that balance. Animals or sitting cooking a meal for someone you love, and whatever it is, find your passion and don't lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. I think sometimes we get blinded by I don't know, the to-do list or the pressure or just like the chaos and busyness of life, right? That sometimes we lose sight of that and have to kind of come back around to finding
Mhm.
that again. So all very good points. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you. It was I enjoyed hearing
Absolutely.
about, I have like probably 1,000 more questions for you out of curiosity, but
Feel free. Let's do this again.
Yes, so I could totally make this in like a 10-hour thing, and I don't know if anybody would watch it, but I would really enjoy it.
Right? We can
Like,
share with our people.
yeah, slice it up and stuff. So I really appreciate all that you're doing. I appreciate your insight to everybody that's going to watch this. And, I'm impressed with all that you do. And I'm just really grateful that you took the time out of your day. I know you're super busy and, made this possible. So thank you for that.
No, I appreciate you asking me to do this. I'm honored and can't wait to see it.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well.